Hi, I'm Doug, and I'm here for Clearview USA to show you how to install a brand new set of Clearview mirrors on your Chevy Colorado, or this will actually also fit the GMC Canyon. This is 2014 model year and up. So before we begin, what I want to do is just run through the basic tools that you're going to need to do the installation. There isn't a lot required. What we're going to essentially start with is a pair of needle-nose pliers, 7mm nut driver. Prefer the plastic trim panel tools as opposed to the metal so you don't scratch any paint. You are going to need a little replacement wire tie. You want to keep that to the side. This is for one of the wiring harnesses. Small screwdriver, a 10mm socket on a 1/4 drive ratchet, or you can go with a ratcheting box wrench or even just a standard box wrench, whatever you have available there. And then a good light and a straight blade screwdriver. Definitely the light will help you get up and see areas where you're going to be doing some of the reinstallation. So that said, let's show you how to put this mirror on. Alright, so to begin with, to take this door panel off, what we need to do is remove the 5 bolts that help hold it in place. We have one behind a plastic panel that pops out. On the left side you'll see a little notch where you'll insert that small screwdriver, and that just pries right back out, and then you can access, and that's what we're going to be using the 7mm driver on. And then we're going to take a trim tool, get up underneath this plastic panel that runs right along the bottom of the control switches. That's going to pop out from the bottom, exposing 2 bolts in the back, and then there's 2 exposed down on the bottom. And we'll take those out, and then from there we can get into sliding the panel off the door. And we're going to go up here. So you notice these two, they're kind of deep in there. There we go. We'll take these 2 bolts out, and then what we'll do is just grab them with the needle nose pliers to pull them out of that so we don't drop them and lose them. And then we have 2 more down below. You'll see the head of the bolt exposed. If you run your finger under there, you'll actually feel an indent in the bottom of the plastic panel. You can just run that tool there, and that's going to line you right up with that bolt. Alright, so now's when we pull out our trim tool. What we're going to do is get up underneath the plastic panel down below where you've got a little space, because we're a little too tight up against the door here to get it on. And there's 3 basically push pins here, here, and here, and then 3 on this side, and we should be able to pop this and lift it out and away from the door. You want to try to get relatively close to those pins when you insert the tool. It'll pop out easier, and you got less chance of doing any damage to the plastic panel or to the pin. So we're going to go out, and then we're going to go up. And move that right out of the way. And we can just let that rest right there. What's there is we'll hold it all in place. Nothing's going to pop out of place. That'll be fine. Just word of warning, we found that there's this little, like what they call a Christmas tree, or a plastic rivet that sits in here on the original equipment. 9 out of 10 times, the head of it's going to break when you take it off, or there's like in some of these where the little chunk of the plastic comes out. Really don't need to worry about that, because with this, what they call a belt weather strip on the inside, and with the clip here, holds this panel in place, and this basically isn't going to affect the refit whatsoever, so don't worry about that. So where we're at right now is we're about ready to take the mirror out. We have a wiring connection here. Now in most cases you're also going to see you got a little wire tie right there. We don't need to worry about that. I'm just going to simply unplug that. Now there's a small push pin right here. We're going to take that trim tool, get underneath, lift that out, and that will allow us to take this whole panel and lift it away, and we can get to the 3 bolts that hold the original mirror in place. Alright, so we're just going to move that. Let's just see if we can tuck that out of our way right there. We're going to loosen these 3 bolts. We'll take the bottom ones out first and leave the top one a bit loose, and then this way we can spin the rest of the top bolt out with our hands as we support the mirror. Alright, so now we're ready to slide the new one in place. First off, make sure you have the correct side in your hand. You obviously want for the left side, small mirror on the bottom, large mirror on top. Then you have the rubber gasket and the 2 or 3 10mm nuts that are going to hold that in place. And we're essentially going to put the mirror back on the way we took the old one out. Is once we snake the wiring through, seat it where it's supposed to be, we'll put the top nut on. Just run it in about 3/4 of the way to hold it, and then this way you don't have to try to hold to support the mirror while putting the other 2 in. So we line up our studs. Okay. Now take into account, you have this big rubber gasket on the back side, and so what we're going to do is turn each nut in until it feels like you got a fair amount of pressure, and we want to stop, and we're going to go to the next one. What we want to try to do is just run them all in evenly and get to a point where you can tell that you've pretty much bottomed out. There really is no torque specs, but you're going to be compressing that rubber, so you don't want to go too tight, but you certainly don't want to go too loose. We want to make sure we have a good even seal all the way around where this joins the door. There we go. So we can feel that's good and snug. And you can see how that backed off a little bit. And snug. And you should see about an equal amount of the stud sticking out past the nut on all 3 points. That gives you a pretty good idea that you're in there and seated properly. So the next step is then to connect our wiring. See that we have one connection here, but we have an additional, and then if you have, of course, you have the heated mirror option on your vehicle and whatnot, you'll have another wire there to connect this to. In this case, this vehicle is not equipped with heated mirrors. So then you'll see that you have this little slotted area there, and that is going to slide over and clip right onto that tab, and that's essentially going to hold it in place. And then just so the wiring isn't in the way of the door panel when we put it back in, and we like to just twist that up a little bit and just keep that out of the way. So now we can put the door panel back on. Now the trick is on these, especially this inner belt molding that sits on top here, it attaches to this piece, and there are we've got 5 clips. This has to be peeled out of there, and the 5 clips removed, installed into the associated slots that they have here, and then we put the belt molding back in. And this just essentially can be rolled out of those clips. Let's see that in a second. You know how that pops right out. So you're basically just going to lift and roll away from you. Alright, then we'll put that to the side. And then we found with a pair of needle nose pliers we can squeeze that back tab and lift that right up and out. Just to show you the profile of the clip, you can see that you have an open area and then 180 degrees to it, a very narrow. Now that narrow, this area is going to go up into that narrow so that the clip sits just like so. So now we can reinstall the belt molding. Alright, so we're going to start with the back. Now look for the red dot, that's going to be the back end. We're going to slide this just underneath and seat that, and then this just simply rolls into the clips. And then on this you got to make sure that this upper lip is on the outside of the window surround, so everything sits nice and flush. Alright, so everything's nice and square. So now we're just going to put this piece back on, and this just simply grabs just around this lip and over the top of the door. Alright, we don't want to forget our little push pin. It sits right in there. That locks this in place. So now you see you got a nice neat separation here. You want to again double check your wiring. You can even, if you're not using that connector, or actually even if you are, you can like sort of loop it. And what that does is move the wire away from these where the pinholes are. Obviously you don't want to pinch it in there. So now we're essentially ready to put the door panel back on. These 5 clips that we just put in are going to pop into associated holes here. And then you have a locating pin here that's going to drop into this slot right here, and this is going to be what allows you to line everything up. Don't forget your lock rod. You want to make sure you put that in place. And actually what we can do is pop that out and put it up inside its hole there ahead of time. So then all we got to do now is sort of put the door panel in place. Okay, so you see that pin dropped in. And you have one at this end as well. You want to drop those in. So if the bottom pins pop in, you know your door is aligned. So then we can just squeeze in the top into those clips. Alright, and what we'll do is a quick check. You want to make sure that there's no overlap on this seam right here, that it just butts up against it. You want to see if you have an excessive gap between the door panel and the upper piece here. If there's a gap where you can, actually see a wide open, you know you're not fully seated. And then of course if you look at your belt molding up top, you can see that it's down in place. When the window comes up, there should be no excessive drag. So there it is, the panel's in place and your mirror's on. So now it's just a matter of, we're going to put those 5 bolts back in, put the covers back on, and then you should be ready to go. Now what I would suggest is, before we do that, you're going to turn your key on and you're going to check your mirror, make sure you've got your proper operation on your mirror, make sure your window goes up and down nice and easy, and then you're all set and we can put the bolts in. On this plastic panel, you're going to see you've got 3 tabs right here, and they're going to interlock up, and you can see the squares where they line up. But even fully lined up, there is a center tab right here that's very long, and it, no matter what you do, you really can't get your fingers up in there to kind of push it up into place. So this is where that straight blade screwdriver comes into vogue. We're going to just basically find that clip, we're going to push up on the bottom of it, and then that should allow us to push this right up in place. So like I said, we have pushed up on the bottom. That snapped this in place. Again, you just want to check your seams, make sure everything looks like it's in where it should be sitting. You can always go across to the other door and reference that just to see, but you can see there's no areas lifted out, no excessive gaps, so that piece is on right. So essentially that's it. For installing the mirror, you're just going to basically do the same thing on the other side. And you can see that's a good looking mirror. So when you're ready for a good set of towing mirrors that you can install yourself, you can call any of our knowledgeable salesmen at 1-800-533-2210, or you can actually order online if you go through Clearview Mirrors USA.com. So we thank you for watching.